Mi gente, you already know who it is. It's Danny Limelight. And I need all of you to subscribe to According to Wiz podcast on Facebook, YouTube, and all other platforms.
What's good, party people? This is According to Woods, and I have the honor and privilege of welcoming once more, with better internet reception, my friend. He is the impresario, the voice of the soundtrack that is Maverick Wrestling. He's the one and only Aaron Glass. What's going on, Aaron?
Thank you, Adam. I appreciate it. If you notice, today's a little bit more relaxed. I think I got more comfortable after yesterday. I'm wearing my Oral Hershiser throwback shirt, and a day removed from shaving, so maybe a little bit of fuzz. Are the dogs wrangled? Are they going to interrupt us?
Yeah, the dogs are out, but they're docile. Because I had my sister and my nephew here, and it was an awesome, cool time to see them. But I've got the dogs during the COVID, right? So they haven't been around people. They didn't have any interaction or whatever. So that's why they were going amok. But now all is well. It's just the usual fare of the wife, the kids, and this crazy guy with the microphone.
Oh, that's good. I mean, I think a lot of us have probably forgotten how to socialize since COVID hit, and I'm sure the dogs are no different, even if they never learned. So yeah, I can only imagine how challenging that is. But I do love dogs, so I appreciate their presence, and one day I'd love to meet them. So.
Oh, hearts! You got Mario Yamasaki's for the must love dogs comment, but we kind of we prematurely got kind of preempted by the shit internet. But we're actually talking about somebody that you and I both know. One Blake Bulletproof Troop, who is a commentator for Championship Wrestling from Hollywood, as well as made his Josh Barnett Bloodsport debut in Florida, in Ybor City, this past WrestleMania weekend. But how did you meet Troop?
I met Troop actually at a show. I don't know if it was, I forgot where it was. And I think a bunch of us were just walking back to our cars, and we were just in the same group of people talking. And then I met him again at a New Year's Eve party at Eli Drake, LA Knight, whatever you want to call him, in Royce Isaac's apartment. I don't think they knew that I was there. I was the driver for Odie Brown. So I was like a guest that I spoke to some of the people, but I kind of didn't want to rock it. Oh, and Katarina was there, and Kat and I obviously worked together a lot for Maverick, so I spent a lot of time talking to her. But Blake and I started talking, and I think he had been drinking. I had not been, because like I said, I was driving. But we were just talking about storytelling in wrestling, and how wrestling is like the pure form of storytelling, and that's why he loves wrestling. And I think we literally stood there and talked for an hour about it. And it was just like, all right, this guy's interesting. And then he got to know Brandon Ficarra, owner of Maverick. And I think he got to meet, Karrion Kross, and Blake has always been somebody who has put himself out there. He lives the gimmick, I guess is the way to say it. And he is so good at getting his name out there. And it's great to see him now in UWN and doing more. Has a big personality. I honestly have not seen him ever wrestle. I think he was training when I first met him. I think, the MMA background, he seems like an athletic guy. I think that would serve him very well. But I think he's already as far as the character work goes, I think he is so much further down the road than so many people, that you see on television every night. And I think that's a testament to somebody who understands the business aspect of it. And I give him a lot of credit for it.
No, it's funny because I actually I met Troop at the MMA Events Inc. First show. They were an amateur promotion that has since put on the first sanctioned MMA show in Belize, the country of Belize, and that happened right before COVID. I want to say 2019, but I met him because his teammate at the time, Daniel Arpahon, was fighting on the card, and yeah, I was we were Facebook friends, didn't really know him, but he's one where, again, like you said, his kind of outward personality makes you feel like you've known him forever, right?
Right.
And,
I honestly don't know if he'd recognize me, especially I think I have more gray hair now since COVID started. We are Facebook friends, and we would talk on Facebook sometimes, but I never want to overestimate how many people actually know who I am. I've helped put together the Maverick shows, but I'm sure people know Brandon Ficara a lot more than they know me, which is by design and probably for the best. He's the owner. I'm just an announcer who, I'm very social, so I put myself out there, maybe more social sometimes than Brandon. And then, of course, there's Paul London, who, I think a few people in the industry might know. It was it's weird because I used to watch him on TV, and now you know him, and I was a big Ring of Honor guy. I think you and I talked about some of the old Ring of Honor shows I went to. I don't think Paul had already moved on at that point, but it's funny because and then I'm the third man. I'm the Hulk Hogan. I'm the Hulk Hogan of Maverick Wrestling. No, I'm just kidding.
Ooh, that doesn't age well.
No, that doesn't age well in so many ways. He didn't age well either. He looks like beef jerky, I think, now.
10 points, yeah.
Isn't that ironic because of his on and off again feud with Macho Man Randy Savage that he looks like beef jerky?
Yeah, Slim Jim. Also, snap into it.
I don't think I'm the name of Maverick Wrestling, so I'm just one of the other people who runs it. But there are also other people. There's obviously Tanisha Singleton, who you and I discussed, who's one of the most incredible people I've ever met, and definitely somebody you should have on your show. I really would like to introduce you to. She's just so impressive, and just like she has a presence that like I was always like, can we get you in front of the camera? And she was like, no. I'm like, no. You would make the show. So, and then there's Paul McGee, who's the other Paul. We usually refer to him as McGee and Paul London as Paul. Paul McGee has been very busy during COVID because he had twins.
Oh, wow. Congrats.
I believe they were born a few months before COVID hit, and he's had his hands full, and those are his first kids. So he is he's a great guy too. He's another MBA behind Maverick. And he actually knows Brandon. We know Brandon through Paul McGee. Brandon and Paul worked together, and they did theater together. And then Paul McGee knew the original owner of Maverick, not the second owner, not who we will speak of. And then Paul McGee brought Brandon in. So Paul McGee is also another very important person in Maverick, and somebody whose friendship and as a coworker, I appreciate both a lot.
That's a nice little cornerstone there.
Thank you. We do have a great team. Putting it together is always challenging, and putting together a show is always really, really difficult and very, very challenging. I think people don't realize the amount of work that goes into it. It's fun in a lot of ways, but there's a lot of frustration. And then, just think about arranging all the flights for people who are on other shows, people who live in other cities, people who, they need to make this flight and maybe they're not always the most reliable. Those are the aspects of that's just a little bit of putting together a show, but it's fun. It's challenging. And then there's like, do people appreciate it? I hope. You don't know. I like to think we've put on some really great shows, but then, you don't always get the response that you like. And I think you and I discussed how being a promoter, I don't know if I would call myself a promoter. I help put together a show. I guess I technically promote it by making sure we're handing out flyers, making sure we're promoting it on social media, but I'm not the owner. So whatever my role is doesn't really matter. But there's so much that goes into it, and you are starting a little bit of a deficit with both fans and with talent, in that they're both kind of trained not to trust you, and completely understandable. There's a lot of bad promoters out there. There's a lot of people who I know, it's weird. They make promises they can't keep. And I know that, at Maverick, sometimes we've had to learn on the job. And it's hard to differentiate between people with bad intentions who are just, I hate to say carnies, or who are scam artists, who are trying to con either talent or or fans, maybe both. Yeah. And people who just make mistakes. Like, to our, if I'm going to be completely honest, when we started Maverick, I had no idea what I was doing. I still don't know a lot. We are learning on the job. And because of that, you make mistakes. And some of the mistakes have been because of, miscalculations on our parts, or trusting the wrong people. And sometimes it's just been, kismet, it's fake. Things just sometimes don't work out. We had one show that actually turned out really well, where we had booked somebody who's now on national television, and he just didn't show up. We were flying him in from Toronto, and he did not show up for the show. And, because of that, he didn't show up because, there was an emergency at the show he was at the night before. Turned out those were also Impact tapings that weekend. And that was when he made his Impact debut as, not as a full-time roster member. He he put someone over, but that was basically his Impact tryout, which he did last minute without telling us and decided just didn't show up for his flight, So that day we pivot, we're through some help from, CJ De Niro, I believe, was actually, if I remember correctly, helped us get Luchasaurus, which is then like the first time Chris Bay and Luchasaurus faced each other.
Wow.
That was a fantastic match. And we ended up having a great show despite all of it. We also had Stephen Wolf pull double duty on that show, and he put on 2 incredible matches. And he is a great talent, and you now see him evolve. So like the show turned out really well, but going into that, I was so upset. I was so disappointed. The person we had booked was somebody I wanted to see, and I had been advocating to bring in for 6 months to a year.
Wow.
And I was we got to get this guy in the ring. He's so talented. He's so talented. And now he's, people know who he is now. And I was just like, I still have that little bit of like grudge against him. And I maybe I should let that go. I'm sure I will eventually. But it was just, I felt like we let down the fans. I felt like, fans are going to think that, we did this this was calculated, which nothing I do is calculated. To a fault. Nothing I do is calculated. Probably should admit that. But I'm like, maybe this is my mea culpa. But like, I'm not going to say I haven't made mistakes, and like I'm very honest, and I will be totally forthcoming about all of them. I don't think I want to put everything out on a podcast because I don't want to expose other people's business or bring up other people's names.
Right.
That either don't deserve the attention or might be litigious for all I know. So I'm going to play it smart. But anytime anyone wants to have a private conversation with me, I am open to it.
No, 100%. Which I love that you mentioned the mea culpa, because I think we're like on the aftermath of what I like to refer to as mea culpa mania, right? Because hey, Miz, you want another title run? Cool, bro. You're working Bad Bunny. Hey, Titus, you want a Hall of Fame induction ceremony? Cool. You're working with Hogan.
Right. That's so ironic.
It's mea culpa mania.
I mean, that is true. And do you think that Titus, like, do you think it's they chose a black man for a reason to work with Hogan? I'm going to go on a limb and say that. But I mean, he's still not back there full time, so you got to think that there's still at least some locker room, pull that is keeping him out. I'm assuming that's what it is.
Look at who they could have gotten. They could have gotten R-Truth. They could have gotten the New Day. They could have gotten just up in Apollo Crews.
Could they have though? Is I guess the real question. Like maybe some of I think some of them are a little bit like I can't see Big E or Kofi or Xavier Woods toting the company line in that situation. And that's not a knock on Titus. Like he does a lot of work in the community, and maybe he just thought this was the best thing, and maybe he genuinely thinks that Hulk Hogan has done repentance. In Jewish terms, we call it teshuva, which is when you return. It's called. It comes from the word of return, but it's repentance. Maybe he's repented. Maybe that's Titus's take. Maybe that's not everyone's take. I personally, it's not my place to say. And like, I think it's horrible. Like, there's no excuse. Like, I also I think a lot of times those apologies that aren't really apologies, where it's like, I'm sorry I got caught. And I'm sorry that you took it that way, more than I did something wrong and I'm a moron and I'm disgusting and I want to grow from this. Like there's those apologies that aren't real apologies, and I'm not sure which one Hogan really falls into.
Yeah, though it wasn't me, kind of defense isn't, or I'm not doing it. Everyone else was doing it.
Shaggy defense.
Everyone else did it.
It wasn't me. Yeah, that's the Shaggy defense.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I mean, but one thing that was glorious, Bobby Roode, about it is we did find out that Hogan was a real American, and we saw a litany of real Americans storm the Capitol on January 6th. So there's that.
Oh yeah, that's what a patriot is. People who refuse to wear masks but yell at you if you kneel for a flag. Like that makes a lot of sense. You and I were talking about this. How the people who are the loudest about these things, there's no consistency and there's no civic responsibility.
Yeah, and again, I can't. Hogan feels good about what he's doing. I can't. Whatever. Warrior. Again, the fact that there's a Warrior award, it's just my goodness. And
I It's funny you should mention this because I watched Dark Side of the Ring last night, the Ultimate Warrior one. I haven't watched the biography one yet, but then I was also reading Dana Warrior's comments on the things that Warrior said, where she said, oh yeah, he learned those things by listening to Rush Limbaugh, but in his speech at the Conservative Students Council, or whatever it was, he says, I learned this from my wife. So like,
oh man,
no one's lying.
did you hear the fight that the spiritual warrior had in the casting out of demons, as told by one Dana Warrior, who's also
I'm sure.
Yeah.
And I'm sure that it had something to do with adrenochrome too, and Drake Wirtz was there too. I don't know what's going on. Someone suggested that she and Drake Wirtz should do a podcast.
That was me. That was me.
That was you.
That was me.
That sounds awful and awfully entertaining, and more of those. Like, I would listen to it to feel superior and smarter than other people.
I don't know. We had renegades in the USA with Springsteen and Obama, and they weren't really renegades, man. That was as polished, and I'm a podcaster, but I mean, fuck, man, that was a full-on Scorsese production, that one.
Yeah, well, at least you have two people who, are respectable and you could listen to and might actually have some good points,
Oh, I love fucking Springsteen. And I got into Springsteen like latter, like Born in the USA, cool, whatever. But like, what was it? The Rising? The Rising was the first Yes.
Sorry, I was thinking on your podcast, we should never do that again.
No, fuck, do that. Oh, like, no. I've got it on my fucking playlist still. Magic is amazing. A radio, whatever the one with fucking Radio Nowhere. Again, I'm a fucking former radio guy, podcast or whatever. So, like,
what about the song from Philadelphia, The Streets of Philadelphia? That was good.
That's more fucking acoustic. I like fucking big band Bruce. Yeah, okay. I like big band Bruce. I'm not like, what is it? The Tunnel of Love, whatever.
I see now why you and Brandon, get along, because I'm pretty sure both Brandon and Bruce Springsteen are the two pillars, the pride of New Jersey. With Bon Jovi, it would be like the Trinity. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, no, 100%. And you might kind of sprinkle in like maybe Bam Bam Bigelow, and
I was thinking bring it back to wrestling, Joey Janela, I guess.
Yeah,
a little more contemporary.
Weren't
Chris Candido?
Right. Well, weren't Canyon, DDP, and Bam Bam like the fucking They weren't the Trinity. They were something.
Triad.
Yeah, which
makes me think of Venture Brothers. I don't know if you're a fan. That is a fantastic show. But the Triad makes me think of Venture Brothers. They're the Triad, which is like, I know it's later year WCW, but totally underrated. And like, they're all really good individuals. I know Bam Bam was probably slowing down end of his career. Canyon was somebody I always loved. I actually loved the Mortis gimmick. More so than Glacier, I loved the Mortis gimmick. I thought the mask was so cool.
Yeah.
I think it was WCW versus NWO, maybe Revenge. I don't think it was World Tour. It may have been Revenge, where you could like change the color of the.
Yes.
He was awesome. And that look was incredible. It's like Skeletor, badass Skeletor wrestler guy. But with all due respect to La Parka.
Oh, the chairman of the fucking
He's
board.
La Parka Dark, I guess, would be like the gimmick.
I was gonna say like the Parka Dark. I mean, isn't that like one of the AEW shows right now?
Probably. I don't know. I can't keep track. Dial-up Elevation. All I know is they're giving a lot of exposure to really talented people who aren't under contract yet.
Yeah, I'm not mad at it. More wrestling, amazing. I love wrestling. I think we talked about it. Is if we would have told like young elementary school age us, and we're like, you're getting fucking all wrestling all the time. I mean, $20 a month maybe, right, to get literally every fucking thing, right?
Yeah.
Like, and then YouTube, right? Like there'd be a thing to facilitate all that. And then you want to hear the backstories, the shoot interview and fucking podcasts and whatever. We'd be like, but unfortunately, I don't know. North American wrestling right now, not completely enamored with.
I think it's tough because I think like from an athletic standpoint, it's definitely there.
Right.
It has all the elements ready to go. It just hasn't been mixed correctly. You have the ingredients, but the recipe has not brought anything. It brought it all together. Like no one has the recipe for success and how to create this beautiful dish that we will all enjoy. I think one of the things I mentioned. I think I think the internet has ruined a lot of things. I mean, the last thing that I was kind of interested in or excited about were the surprises for AEW, which turned out to be Christian Cage, right? And I actually thought that was really good. It's just there's not a lot to speculate about anymore. There's not a lot that is a mystery, and I really feel like the lack of surprises, the lack of blurring the lines between what's real and what's fake, what's real and what's predetermined, has been what's missing. At least to me, that's my perspective.
Here's the funny thing, right? As excited as you were, and I love like fucking Christian Cage, whatever you want to call him. I love him. Like he's just tremendous. I didn't think he got his fair shot, in the WWE going to Impact. He was the perfect fucking guy to do that. Yeah. And then coming back and getting an ECW and world title run. But with that all being said, this is a guy that you were excited about, and it's in a fucking battle royal. Who will probably be overshadowed by whoever the fucking Joker is. That Joker card.
Okay, so I like the surprise. I'm not saying I like the result.
Okay, 10 points.
But and people were like, well, maybe it's Brock Lesnar. I'd rather see Christian Cage and Brock Lesnar, personally. That was one of the things that people are speculating on. Maybe some people were like CM Punk, but I didn't even believe that. But at this point, I don't know what CM Punk really is. Like, I haven't seen him wrestle in, I don't know how
good. Years. Punk's the couple times that I saw him once when CFFC, which is one of the kind of feeder leagues to the UFC. He's a commentator with John Morgan, who's a media person in MMA, right? So he's fucking content there, right? And then I was actually, when they did the screening for that whatever fucking horror film that he was in, they had it at.
He plays someone named Jacob, but I forgot the name of
the
It sounds actually pretty interesting.
It's good. I mean, I think it's on Netflix now. Okay. But that dude is fucking content. Like AJ Lee, April, she was there. They look fucking content. Like
it seems like he doesn't need the money. So
no, and again, like I said, I was there in both fields, right? Like the CFFC had friend sighting. I was there, saw him, and this wasn't anything off of a dirt sheet or whatever. Saw him him in a completely different light. He is fine. He's fucking fine. He's even like happier where maybe in his previous incarnations when he wrestled wasn't so, I don't want to say appreciative, but open to fan kind of interactions. He was totally there. Now he cut it off, like whatever, and went to the back when he had to. But it was a lot. I've heard stories, during his kind of like end days of the WWE run, and I'm like, this is a completely different diet. This is somebody who doesn't need it. And I love those, like the DDPs and the CM Punks or Batista or Rock, where they don't necessarily need the business, because when you see guys that come back for one more run, cool nostalgia and everything like that, but they're coming back for one more run. Why? Because maybe their finances aren't in good shape. Maybe they went through a divorce, or
are you implying something about Goldberg?
Oh, we can Billy. Oh, he's really good to the MMA community. I know many friends that
I've heard. Like, he seems like an interesting person. Like, I could see it going either way. Where he's really not a nice person, and he's a really great person.
But his kid changed him. His kid definitely changed him.
I think that changes a lot of people.
Yeah.
From what I've seen, I don't have kids. But I do think that there's like a certain amount of resentment or expectation. You see it in professional sports too. When someone retires, either at the, maybe even at the top of their game, or younger than people think they should retire, there's like this: how could you do this to us? How could you leave us? And it's like, they don't owe you anything. Like, honestly, I'd love to see, part of me would love to see CM Punk come back, but like, he doesn't owe it to anyone. And if that's the life he wants to lead, and he's happier, and he almost died from, negligence, on behalf of certain medical staff, then maybe it's better for him to stay away for his own health. And then, like, with the stuff with Mauro Ranallo, like, he had to step away several times because of the toxic environment. I don't know where that comes from. Is it, is it some of the people he's working with? Possibly. Is it the social media? Is it the internet?
Vince, Vince,
Possibly.
Vince,
Maybe,
Vincent.
maybe it's the micromanaging aspect of everything he announces. I can see how it would take its toll, and like nothing should come before your health, whether it's mental or physical. Nothing should take precedence. And there were times where there are wrestlers and there are professional athletes who you see getting back into their profession, and you're like, no, I don't want to see you. Like Jordan Reed in football is a really good example, or Wes Welker in the NFL also. Like when they were trying to get a contract with the team, I was just like, please don't. No one wants to see you brain damaged. Like this is not worth it. You've had a great run. You've given so much to the fans. Go out with your health intact.
Yeah.
Right. And I think that's important. And mental health is something, it's increasingly a conversation in our society, in our country. And I still don't think it's enough.
No, not enough.
No. And wrestling can be very hard for your mental health. It can be very, I miss shows. I miss doing them, and I miss going to shows because I miss that aspect of it. But it can also be kind of taxing. And I think, we should all support each other. I try, there are certain people, I guess, in the industry who I don't love and I don't want to work with. But I try not to just publicly say anything about it, right? Like we try to keep it under wraps.
Yeah, people find out for themselves, that's it, and as much as you try to kind of curtail some of the experiences for someone, it's just some people, not to bring up the lemming type aspect, but some people do need to peer off the cliff and maybe even jump off of it.
Right. And I also for certain people, I'm a very forgiving person. For we mentioned the talent who didn't show up for a show who's, now on, a television show, who's now on one of these shows. If that person reached out and was like, I'm sorry, or at least acknowledge that they kind of screwed us over. Okay, then we're good. It doesn't take much. And like I said, I have made mistakes. I, have not always handled adversity very well when it comes to Maverick, and I'm not the person who drives everything, but there are times in my own responsibilities, I could have done better. And I could have, seen where I made a mistake, or, hey, this person screwed up. Instead of just making it saying, hey, they screwed up, but they're not part of the company, which is true. I could have said, well, I could have been more revealing as to what the situation was. I could have been more open instead of I think there's also an aspect where we all get defensive, where we feel attacked, we immediately go on the offensive, right? Instead of just taking a step back and slowing down and being like, okay, this is where things went wrong. Be transparent, which I am a transparent person. It's just sometimes it doesn't always come off that way. And I don't know how to explain certain things. And some of them are really hard to explain. And I don't always have all the details. So that's also part of the situation. So, I don't know. I think I'd love to see us come back and do more shows. I think it would be a fresh start with all the COVID. I do think there's such a market for wrestling now because we all want to get back to this. And I know that GCW is coming back to the West Coast. I don't know if they'll ever run here full time. I don't think bar wrestling will be coming back. I haven't heard much. I haven't seen anything from PCW Ultra or PWG, AWS, Rival Pro. I think MPW is running. I know that.
Yeah, every Friday.
Right. And, I think their style of show is a little different from what we do. Like I've said, I think I've been very open and now I think they're great. I think it's a great school and I think they're really great people to work with. I have a very high opinion of NPW. And, that's a testament, anyone who can give us Daniel Moon, deserves credit. That guy is one of those people in the business that you root for. And that's the other thing. I'm thankful to this business for introducing me to certain people and there are great people who have crossed my paths. And if I'm going to be honest, there's more great people than bad people, and that's maybe the measure of the day. I think it's just sometimes we focus so much on the negative, and this person, said this about me, or this person, is kind of a bad person, and this is now coming out that this person's a bad person, we focus so much on that. We don't reflect on all the great people we've met. I wouldn't know you, and, we've talked about my admiration for someone like Sean Black, who I think is a fantastic person, I wouldn't know anybody, like any of the people in this community, if it weren't for, being involved with Maverick. So thankful for that.
Yeah, no, 100%. Which I gotta ask, like, obviously as a fan and somebody who basically, were a patron of pro wrestling, what is like the main, like, I guess the takeaway that you've received, kind of seeing the other side of the curtain, so to speak, in terms of positivity, where it's impacted your life. You mentioned the relationships, but is there anything else?
There are certain people. I think it's really reshifting your expectations and shifting your appreciation for what goes on. The people sometimes you think are going to be the nicest disappoint you. Sometimes the people who you think are going to be assholes are the nicest people. We talked about the Bob Holly situation, right? Or James Storm, where I had this preconceived notion of who they were, and I was wrong. I think it's also you realize the work that goes into it, and from everybody involved, whether it's the promoter or the people setting up the ring or the lighting or the cameras or the referees. I think I have so much more appreciation for what Odie Brown and Isaac Hayes do and how good they are at their jobs because of seeing behind the curtain. And what they do in the ring is they're so good at, but they're also so good at so many other things that go into a show. I think that you see differences in approach from some of the talent. People who take this so seriously and have really thought it out and have thought out their character and where they want to go in the industry, and people who are getting by on their athleticism and maybe talent, and maybe they see that they want to be on SmackDown or Raw, but they haven't really thought about the steps to get there, right? And I think that's an eye-opening. I think one of the things you and I have discussed about is I think there's a lot of people who they'll learn how to cut a promo, they'll learn how to they'll learn how to psychology, they'll learn the moves, they'll learn all that, but they don't know the business aspect of it. They don't know how to conduct themselves on social media. They don't know how to conduct themselves in a business interaction. When you're on the other side and you're talking to a talent, about bringing them in for a show or, how much they want to get paid, there's not a lot of business acumen that you get sometimes on the other side. And then there are some who really know what they're doing. And those are the people who you see on television. And I think that a lot of these wrestling schools should teach these things, and maybe they're starting to, I don't know, maybe they are, but I think you and I have discussed, and we discussed this before our call, we've discussed it a little bit more, that there's a basic distrust. And I get that. And I totally respect that. And maybe I am a little bit apprehensive about the relationship sometimes too.
Yeah.
I'm very cautious about my relationships with talent because I don't want them to think I'm taking them for granted, or that I don't see that their long-term goals go beyond Maverick and go beyond whatever show they're on with us. And I wish them the best. But there's got to be at some point you have to trust each other, because I'm totally up to earn that. And I am open to it. And you can ask me any question you want and I will answer honestly. I don't think I have the capacity to lie, honestly. I just don't think I know how, but there has to be a trust. There has to be a two-way relationship where, we're putting you on our show. We're paying you to do this. We appreciate how hard you work in the ring. We know that you're risking your body for us and your reputation. Please promote the show on social media, right? There are certain talents that are really good about promoting the show. There's some talents that are really good about getting you a promo. Right. And there are others who, are less good at it. One of the people who I think that if you book them on a show, you're going to get 1,000% return on them is someone like Chris Bay. I think I mentioned, he'll do the promos and he will do them very, very well. And he'll do them early on to promote the show. And then he will promote the show at every opportunity he gets. If you put a title on him, he's going to include it in every picture that he's ever taken of him. He will put over your promotion if you invest in him. And I'd like to see that in more talent, right? I am willing to invest in someone, financially, whatever it is, if I think that they will give me the return that I'm looking for. This is all a business relationship, but also I do want to like you as a person. I do want to trust you. And I have gotten that. And sometimes that does get in the way where you're like, I really like this person, but they're not doing what I need them to do. How do you kind of like lay down the law, and I'm not very good at that, honestly. It's hard. I hate being the one who's like, hey, could you promote this on social media, please? Because I don't want to ask them to do more things because I know that they're going to give us a good match. But like someone like Chris Bay, you don't need to ask. He's going to do it. Or someone like Odie Brown or Isaac Hayes, they will do it for you. Katarina, like these are people who, some of the people you see as regulars in Maverick are because they're really good people to work with. Everyone you see basically.
Which I gotta, it's funny that you say that in terms of promotion and matches and what have you, because to me, I don't think there's ever been more money in combat sports, and in my mind's eye, pro wrestling is a combat sport. There's no way that you could wrestle and not pay the price in terms of your physical acumen, coming in and going out, right?
And so much respect for that, by the way.
Right. So you've got, obviously MMA, you've got the UFC, you got Bellator, the parent company of the UFC, Endeavor, just went public. You can buy, shares and stock in them. You've got Bellator, who's, under the Viacom umbrella. You've got that aspect of it. Then you've got, Impact Wrestling. You've got, obviously AEW and New Japan and what have you. So there's more money than there has ever been in combat sports, right? But I think to get the money, you as a performer or a athlete in it, you essentially have to do more for that money, right?
Right.
It's so funny because like I never have to tell a wrestler to get on all social media platforms, right? To maybe have a merchandise link in their bio to where people can get their wares, right? But fighters, I'm only on this, and they will actually say I'm only on this, right? But also talk to the promoter. I need more money because I trained this hard, this whatever, a litany of reasons, right? And it's just like, but you're not doing enough, like in terms of stars, and you might be a star in MMA in a particular promotion, but total disclosure, before all of this happened, pre-March of 2020, for 16 months I drove for Uber. When I said I'm an interviewer for MMA and pro wrestling or combat sports, there are people like, what the fuck is that?
Right. And it's like, you're right, there is more money to be made. There's also more platforms on which to promote yourself. And there's more that you have to be careful about. I think I mentioned, my MBA is in brand management. And, brand can mean a lot of different things, but when it comes to a wrestler or an MMA fighter, it's your personal brand. It's, what do people associate? What do people think of when they hear your name? Right. And you have to be very careful about how you conduct yourself on social media. You have to be careful about how you conduct yourself with social interactions. And there are people who are really good about this. And sometimes I think there's a temptation on social media to just air all of your dirty laundry, no matter how personal it is. And like I said, that's important if it's a mental health thing. If that helps you, then great. But when it comes to your business interactions, it's not always a good idea, and sometimes you need to take a breath and say, okay, what do I hope to accomplish by posting this? What am I doing? And I think that's something that people need to think about. And if you are on a show, I think you and I mentioned, I'm going to be doing some guest commentary as of right now. Details are still coming in for June 12th for Amped Up Wrestling in LA. I'm very excited. But you will never get criticized for over promoting a show.
Right.
That is not going to be an issue for anyone. You will get criticized for under promoting it, but you'll never get criticized for over promoting it. And Brandon Ficarra, who we mentioned, the owner of Maverick Wrestling, he is somebody who is so loyal to people, sometimes to a fault. I've asked him to be like, I don't know if I want this person involved. He's like, no, I really, and he's usually right. Like he's right. So, I'm wrong, he's right. He is, I don't think he is overly trusting, but he gives people a chance. And I think that's very good. And we were relaunching the Maverick website, and he reached out to, I think, Odie and some of our wrestlers and said, hey, when the website's fully up, we'd love to have a link to your merchandise so people can support you. And I remember Odie being like, what? Like, what? on the Maverick website, like that's not the company. Like you're taking away from your shirt sales. We're like, so this is us. This is a concerted effort to get you to the next level.
Correct.
We want you to be too big for us at some point. It hurts. And as soon as Karrion Kross, signed, I was like really happy for him. And I knew he had to go there. I was crossing my fingers for AEW because I thought maybe he could still work for us. And I thought maybe they're a little bit more open to that, him working with us, or New Japan. But like, all right, that's where he wants to be. And he's doing great. And he's doing better than great.
Yeah.
We know that we're a stepping stone, but let's be honest about it and let's work together. We also want to take it to the next level. So you can help us do that. We can help you get to the next level if we all work together. Now, this part we need from the fans is to come to shows. Therein lies the real trick.
Yeah.
How do you draw 300 fans? Bar Wrestling did a very good job of that. We have not hit that yet. It's something we aspire to. And sometimes it's finding the right venue. Oh my God. That is one of the biggest pains in the butt that I did not know about.
The venue?
Oh my God. So difficult. They're so expensive for one thing.
Okay.
The other thing is this place can let you serve alcohol, but this place can't. This place can if you bring in an outside alcohol vendor. And they're like, I know people want alcohol at a show. I get that. I don't drink at the shows because I am working, and also like I'm not a huge drinker. I have very low tolerance for alcohol. One drink, I'll have a Truly, and I'm all set. But like there's so many of these things that the overhead is so expensive. It's very hard, and like we still need to find that sweetheart deal where our overhead is a lot lower. I want to invest as much as we can in talent because that's where I am. That's where I nerd out, right? I'm a mark. I'll admit it. I want the big names on our shows, and I want them to be there because I want to see that match, right? And I want to work with those people, and I want to announce that match. But sometimes you have to really look at the balance and like, hey, this is the cost. How many people do you need to draw just to offset the cost? And then hopefully you have sponsorships, and we hopefully can do a better job of getting sponsors. But that's also kind of hard because, like you said about MMA and combat sports, you're trying to explain it to people. It's sometimes hard to sell wrestling to potential sponsors.
Yeah, which I think, and it's a weird one, right? Because you, theoretically speaking, have more, like the business and the infrastructure is more built for sponsorship versus MMA, because like you can sponsor the UFC, but also not your favorite fighter. You would have to work out a separate deal with your favorite fighter to sponsor them personally, and that also might not UFC's new deal with, I mean, it was Reebok before, now Venom, whatever. You can't use your logo in the promos. The reasons why you would in I guess times historically to sponsor somebody, all of that is taken away or whatever. So the millions basically get put to, like, if you're at a signing with said fighter and what have you, and they just happen to have your shirt or your logo on a part of like either the 8x10 or the shirt that they're wearing that day, that's a minuscule amount versus,
And that's the thing, like, give us a sponsor and we'll over deliver for you. Just like we have, I think, in certain respects for our talent. Like, not always, and always looking to do better, but like when it comes to the sponsors, like, Brandon, his background is, acting, performance, all these things, but he's also a sales professional. He's written a book,
the book,
90 Days of Failure, I believe. That is like the Bible for salespeople, and he does speaking for sales training and all these things. We want you to come back. We're going to over deliver you. We will quote you a price here and say you'll get these things, and then we'll fit you in other places where we didn't even mention, just to give you more, because your return on investment should be higher, and we want you to be an enthusiastic sponsor. So give us a sponsor and we'll show you what we can do, right? Kind of thing. But that can be hard because we're still building our audience. We don't have millions of views on YouTube, but we do have a lot, and we have dedicated fans. And we have a potential audience in Southern California where right now there is a desire and maybe a glut of promotions. There was a lot of oversaturation for COVID. I don't know how many are coming back. I don't know how many are going to be doing shows, on a regular basis. So there is an opportunity here. It's just, kind of putting all the pieces together. And I think we're still working on that, but like we have some time since people still need to wear masks and not everyone's vaccinated. Please get vaccinated. If you want wrestling shows to happen, you should probably get vaccinated. That would be my advice also. That's my soapbox for a second.
There you go.
But like, putting together the business plan is very challenging. I'm somebody who has, we have the business background. It's just getting in front of the decision makers, and hopefully you get somebody who, if they're not a wrestling fan, at least they don't have preconceived negative connotations in mind when you meet with them.
No, 100%. Now, Charles the Professor Wilton goes, "Hey guys, hey Charles."
Hey Charles, sorry, was it Dr. Wilton? He's a professor. You should probably call her Dr. Wilton.
That'd be good. Well, he's the professor of fisticuffs because he is a wheelchair boxer up in Canada.
That sounds incredible and inspiring, and I'd love to hear more about his story. Sorry, go ahead.
Funny that you mentioned it because he says he has you right here because he says, "Question: I'm an adaptive boxer. I'm new in a sport. I'm in a new sport, and I don't know how to really promote myself due to the nature of my niche sport, like adaptive combat sports. So, do you have any?"
That's a really good question, and I would wish I knew more about adaptive sports. But one thing that is really interesting is as we see more streaming services and social media pop up, the niche aspects of a lot of these things means there is more of a market for it because you have an easier way to reach people. I think you start with social media. You also reach out to organizations that work with wheelchair athletes and that kind of thing, and you look for those kinds of partnerships. Look for people who have larger followings than your own. Build yours organically, be on all the social media platforms. I think that's really important. But then, partner where you can. Find people who are already in your space who have that established presence and have an established following and work with them. In marketing, your first question is, who is your target market? And then you ask, where are they? How do you reach them? Those are all the questions that you need to ask yourself. So if your target market is sponsors, where are they? Bug them on social media, try to work with them as much as you can. And then you can really draft off of other brands that have established themselves as much as they have to build your own brand. Work on these partnerships, work on these relationships. I think, Adam, you've worked, you have sponsors, you have a lot of great relationships. How did you approach them? I mean, when you were growing your following, I think this is a good question. When you were just a podcaster out of your own little
studio apartment, yeah,
where you didn't have a following because you hadn't podcasted yet. Was it you built the audience first and then you approached them, or did you use them to help build your audience?
Well, I cheated a little bit, right? Because so I'm a guy who loves combat sports, right? And when I got in, I was training at a school, and a couple of my friends or professors, that's what they call it in jiu-jitsu circles, were actually fighting for internationally promoted cards, right? So when I got the first in to kind of come in on the business side, I had actually talked to Court Bauer because I had befriended.
Court Bauer's a great guy.
Yeah, he is absolutely.
Really like
Shout out to MLW. But
yeah.
One of the things that I did was I had befriended somebody that was on The Amazing Race, right, as a videographer, and he's just like, I train, but I can do stuff better than the UFC's production team. And I was like, oh. So basically I connected the dots and had him basically film two fighters, Heinrich Wasmer and Daniel Rodriguez, who is now in the UFC, almost an undefeated record, like 17-2, whatever, recipient of one of the Fight of the Night bonuses and what have you, right? Once that, people knew me from there, right? And from there, I ended up doing interviews at shows, right? So I built my following. And it's funny because now with the sponsorships and everything over the last year and the podcast, because I would do periodic Facebook lives and Instagram lives or whatever, but nothing consistent. Once I had this concise landing page for everyone to go on and what have you, and became more podcast centric, it was the place where everybody came to do. But I didn't start from nil, right? I mean, maybe when I started jiu-jitsu it was nil, but when I started the podcast, I'd already had like 2,300 followers on like Instagram and a couple on YouTube or what have you. So I did start from nil, but it's funny because the people that know this podcast, they don't even know the 12 promos that I did and was trying
Right.
to work into Combate America, where Court Bauer was an executive producer at the time that I was talking to him, for me and Bosun Wang to come a part of the team, right? And then the 4.5 years that I'd been trudging away at pro wrestling and MMA shows, doing interviews or whatever. People don't even know that this podcast has always been in existence since
Mhm.
July, and people just know me from that, not the other two things.
And I think Dr. Wilton, Charles, if I may, I think Adam is a great story, and like I don't think any of us have, can even talk to you about, working through adversity. I'm sure you seem to be somebody who's going to work very hard, and
Yeah.
like, don't take those rejections personally.
Right.
Keep working, keep moving forward. I didn't know adaptive boxing existed
Yeah.
until this question. So like, you're going to open a lot of eyes. I think, I'm assuming that you have your story, you have your pitch, you have everything together. What is your story? What is it that you hope to accomplish? And when you approach sponsors or podcast hosts such as Adam, just get your story out there as much as you can. Use your own social media platforms. Start there. Start tagging, some of these sponsors, and hopefully someone will pick up. And I think they will. I really think that this is something I would love to help with. Like, this is something I'm sure Adam would. Like, these are
Yeah.
you're asking the right questions, and you're asking the right person in Adam.
Oh, thank
I'm just
you.
the guy who asked to be on his show. So,
No,
but I do
and
think that there's a great story here,
no, absolutely, and the rejections, right? So I
though.
can say every day that I'm, like 400 plus episodes in. I probably have 3,000 people that either
Right.
no showed or didn't reply or wanted to charge or thought they were too big or what have you, right? There are many promotions that maybe I wasn't whether it be optics or audio, what they were looking for, right? I saw people that might not, at least in my eyes, right, have
Mhm.
put the work, or they might be just a face, but to me that was a very animalistic type deal, because like they got that spot because they got that spot, regardless of whatever, because you don't have to have a rubric of why, right? Like, and that's the crazy thing about this kind of podcast, combat sports,
Mhm.
whatever. It's not a paint by numbers. It's not A to B to
Right.
C deal. There's people that have literally picked up a microphone and they look great and they're
Right.
where I thought I wanted to be.
Right. And there are people who will leapfrog you. And I've seen that happen. Well, not so much with me. I think most of the people who have gotten, picked ahead of me are because they're better, or they've been doing it longer. But I think I've been fortunate. Keep working through, and keep reaching out, reaching out to as many outlets as you can to get your
Mhm.
story out there. And it's all about eyeballs on your story. And the more eyeballs you get, the more people will know who you are, the more opportunities you have to spread your message and just to increase your brand footprint, as we like to say.
Absolutely. And he says, I'm still thinking about going on your show. Oh, please let me know. I'd love to have you on. I know I was supposed to have you and your opponent, but that fell through. But that fight fell through. And I have a big fight this summer at a Street Beefs event, backyard fighting organization, which this is fun, right? Because
Right.
going back to what I was saying about there's more money in combat sports than there ever has been before. Why things like might have been in some circles viewed as lowbrow, like bare knuckle fighting championship or
Mhm.
celebrity boxing, that
Right.
have literally kind of leapfrogged other organizations because like they've been, like the Paul brothers, right?
I
They're
was
not
going to say, look at Logan Paul.
yeah, and owning of the platform. Triller is their platform. They just bought Fight TV that has a litany
Oh,
of
they own Triller?
yeah. They own Triller, and then they just purchased Fight TV, which is here nor there.
I'm really not a big Logan Paul fan because of some of the stuff he did on his.
Oh, the Japanese Suicide Force.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
So it's like
yeah,
when you see people who are making so much money who you maybe don't love. You're like, oh, well, that's great. But
Or never,
it's
or
you got to give credit. That is smart. He's been smart about growing his following and growing
yeah,
his career. And like Charles, it sounds like from what from what you've told us, you have more of substance. You
yeah,
have more legit. You see so many influencers and people who are famous for being well known, right? They don't do anything remarkable, but what Charles is doing, at least to me, is remarkable.
remarkable,
And
100%.
like that's a story that people are going to want to hear, and that's a story that people are going to want to have on their show. So that's just my 2 cents. I think that you're already ahead of the game, and that you have a well conceived, pitch essentially that just is natural for you.
No, 100%. Yes, I'm going to be reaching out to you, Charles, to have you. And again, he has a documentary film on him.
Oh, well, that helps a lot too. I mean, it sounds like you're ahead of this. Are you
Yeah,
asking because you just want to tell us how much you've already done, Charles? Let's be honest. You're way ahead. You're ahead of me. And more people know who you are than they know who I am. But that's okay.
yeah.
No, but it sounds like you have a really well-conceived view of where you want to go with this.
Hmm.
Just keep working at it, man.
Yeah.
Reaching out to people like Adam. Keep reaching out to sponsors. Keep reaching out to podcasts and YouTube shows and influencers who are in your space. Maybe someone like Logan Paul would want to talk to you, honestly.
Right, exactly.
I sound like I'm deprecating the guy because of what I was offended by, which I think we can all universally agree was offensive. He's done a great job at building his brand, and you're in his space essentially, a niche within that space. That means you're not a threat to his share of the market. You can actually help him, right? So looking at other people who have a larger following, who you're not, fighting for market share, I think that's also a really good thing.
Absolutely. And you can't be the first twice, right? So maybe there was adaptive boxing prior to you, right? I always like to use the BlackBerry analogy, right? BlackBerry were the first to really like develop apps for your phones, right?
I
But
thought you
it's
meant fruit, but okay, yeah.
right. Well, they're one of the first, right? But
No fruit.
it took an Apple and Android system to
Right.
optimize it and kind of left BlackBerry in the dirt, right? So
Mhm.
with that all being said, it's just like you if they haven't seen it, I mean, if they haven't seen it, it's new to them. So you might be the first adaptive boxer in anybody's conversation, and if you're that, you have I mean, when they like word association, right? Or like WWE might not know what it is or whatever. That's the thing that The Rock or John Cena or Hulk Hogan or Ultimate Warrior do. UFC, Conor McGregor. That's the thing that Conor McGregor does, or Dana White or whatever, right? So the fact that people associate you with the thing, right, puts you in a very, very, you say niche, but I think it's an opportunistic type
Right.
of position.
The more niche you go, the less competition you have, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the more your story is, I can't say it's more unique, because unique means one of a kind. So either you're one of a kind or you're not. So it's it's less competition. I'll just leave it at that. Okay. And I think, what Charles just said is also important. He said, I want to be the best in the world in my sport.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And I think that's great because, and bring it back to professional wrestling for a second, because that's my only frame of reference. They say, don't become a wrestler if you don't see yourself as world heavyweight champion one day.
Right.
So you're motivated, and that is 99% of the battle. So you have the will. Now, let everyone else help you with the way.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I'll be reaching out to you, good sir. So, there's that. But I mean, obviously, we're turning and talking about like optimization, right? So,
Right.
obviously, we're kind of starting back at square one once shows, and there have been shows in the LA area, Orange County, that have been running here in Southern California. But I mean, as this kind of large scale, what we knew pre March of 2020, kind of SoCal scene, what are some of the things that you're looking to optimize?
Our production quality has always been something that Braden has focused on optimizing. That's something that I can see in the finished product. I don't necessarily know how to get there because I don't have that background. I think personally, I want to optimize my abilities, on the microphone. I think I've been doing color commentary now for a while. I think I might move more towards play-by-play. That's been suggested to me just because, I don't have, the background of being in the ring. So I don't know how authentic it is. I think they put me on color commentary because I have a big personality. And I love doing it, but if I can also do play-by-play, that'll be definitely a switch for me. I haven't done it. I think keeping up with the action might be challenging, and I'd have to really brush up on some of my holds. So you would be able to help me with that because, I know basic holds, but like when it comes to, the more that wrestling goes more into the MMA space, I have trouble, differentiating between different, holds, like a heel hook versus an ankle lock. I guess, it's how you position, the
Right.
leg and all that, but it's hard for me to see that sometimes as to what the difference might be. I guess where your hands are placed, but I'm sure you could help me with that. And as far as the product goes, it's going to be challenging because since COVID hit, it was happening before COVID, but I feel like it's ramped up. So many people have been signed, right? And sometimes they can work other shows. I think some of the AEW talent can do indie shows, but I don't know. Some of the MLW talent can do indie shows, but I don't know, right? It's trying to navigate that landscape is going to add an extra layer of complication. I do think we need to also focus a lot on local or local-ish talents and developing them more and more until they get signed away too. Guys like Matt Vandegrift, and women like Heather Monroe, who somehow are still not signed. I think it's a matter of minutes before they get signed. While you still have them at your disposal, you really should use them and you really should work with them as much as you can, because it's hard to bring in the fly-ins all the time and build story, especially when they don't get signed or they're not available for the show because they live in another state. And Matt Vandegrift, I believe, does live in Vegas these days, but that's an easy drive. And we have a lot of guys we use from there, like Calder McCall, Chris Bay, those guys. I do think that you have to start looking elsewhere for talent. I think you have to identify talent. You have to be better at identifying talent, and that's something that Paul London excels at. But there are guys on the indies that I want to bring in. I see Lee Moriarty. I see Wheeler Yuta. I see Ziggy Haim, out of Pittsburgh. And I'm like, I really would love an opportunity to work with them. I think I see matchups. I see potential. But how long will they be available for, and how available are they, and how much will it cost? Those are all questions we need to ask. And with so many people losing out on income because of COVID, our booking fee is going to go up.
Yeah.
I understand that they might. If people have stayed this long in combat sports and they've been waiting for their opportunity, they might need the money more. And I get that. But I also feel like maybe there will be more shows, maybe there'll be more opportunities. But we also have to just find a financial, model that works, and that's hard. You'll help us promote and you'll help us bring in, 1,000 fans, and I think that'll be great. And I don't like I like keeping our prices for tickets at a reasonable level because I want everybody to be able to come out. Like, I tell friends of mine who are not wrestling fans, my girlfriend who is not a wrestling fan, although ironically enough, she has been to a PWG show.
Whoa, hey.
She has dated very few guys in her life. Like, she probably wouldn't be saying any of this, but she dated another wrestling fan who went to, I don't know him, another Jewish guy who is a wrestling fan in the LA area. And I'm like, I don't know. I'm sure, I thought maybe we had mutual friends, but apparently we don't.
Wow.
But she took her to a PWG show once or twice. And she was like, I think she found it somewhat entertaining. But I tell people who are not wrestling fans, I say, come to one show. It is unlike anything else you can do on a Saturday night in Southern California. It's just a different experience. And like, as much as I love watching, AEW or NXT or, whatever I'm watching, Impact, ROH, dude, live shows are different. And it's like, especially if you like to drink and you can grab a beer, it's a concert meets theater, meets a sporting event, meets, crowd interaction, a murder.
Fan participation.
Dinner theater if you really want to.
Yeah, fan participation.
Exactly. And that is what makes it. And sometimes the fans take over the show a little bit too much to my liking. But that's neither here nor there. Trying to get themselves over. This is me cutting my promo on the fans. Stop trying to get yourselves over and pay attention to the talent like me. Sorry, I just have to do that. Yeah, so it's like just getting people to come to shows. It's so much fun, and I know people will be cautious because of COVID, and I get that. And there again, the more people get vaccinated, the less of a risk it will be. But I don't want to keep ranting on that because everyone has their own opinions. I just want to see shows again, and I want to be part of shows again, and that's why I'm excited for Amped Up on June 12th in Los Angeles.
Yeah, no, I love it.
One thing that Sean Black is very passionate about is about the community and, revitalizing the community. So he runs his shows in a church in Englewood, and it's fantastic. It really is. And I love seeing it. So.
Yeah, man. I was there at the first show, and there's a lot of people that were on that first show that are now.
Wait, were you at the one where I believe the minister gave someone a stunner? Yes. I was at that show. That was so much fun. I was like, I've only been to church a couple times. Like the only other time I've been for a friend's play and for a class in Christianity I took in college. And I'm like, if church was like this, you'd probably have a lot more converts. I'm just saying,
Yeah, no, 100%.
That was a lot of fun. And Sean puts on a good show, and he's good people, and that's the kind of, I talked to Brandon about, hey, I think I might do commentary on the show. And I actually asked Brandon for his blessing before I approached Sean about it or before I said anything. And Brandon was like, yeah, of course, go for it. Get reps, support Sean. Now Brandon wants to come to the show. He wants to support Sean. So it's like, we all want to be part of this because Sean is somebody you root for in this industry, which is, I try to root for everyone, but sometimes you root for people a little harder. And Sean is one of those people.
I like it. Now, speaking of, I'll leave a link to the doc. Send it to the DMs because unfortunately we can't pull it up here.
Yeah,
but dude, let me know. I'll tweet it and all the social media buzz things. Absolutely. Now, obviously, Aaron, there have been a litany of people that have helped you get to where you are, both professionally and personally. So take as long as you need. Let's get some shout outs out of the way, my man.
Oh, man. I think I have to start with Steve Wu, who is the original owner of Maverick. We butt heads. We're good friends, but we also butt heads, and we go back and forth, and we have our falling outs. But he's the one who gave me my first opportunity. And along the same lines, I got to go with Brian Farmer. He's somebody, Brian Jace, if you've seen him wrestle. We don't always agree on things. We've had our little falling outs, but at the end of the day, he's somebody I love and really care about, and I want to see him happy. He's moved to Boston, and I miss him. I really miss working with him, and I really miss interacting with him. He is such an energy. He has such a creativity, whether it's wrestling or, horror films. He's a horror film director. He's done a lot, and he's just an incredible person. And I really think that the SoCal wrestling community lost something when he moved, to be completely honest with you. Who else? Alan Rodriguez, somebody I really like. Who was somebody who helped us backstage and was training at OCCW. I don't think he is anymore. And his cousin Alex, Villa Gomez, also another great person who really I'm happy to have crossed paths with. Kathy Campanelli or, Alyssa, depending on how you know her, Kathy from HR or whatever. Avi Marino, I believe is the other name she goes by.
Alyssa Marino, yeah.
Alyssa Marino, sorry. I wasn't sure. I think she was Avi at one, very briefly in NXT. I wasn't sure. Let's Get Serial podcast. Another person who I would love to do more work with, I'd love to broadcast with. She's just so talented and a joy to work with. And, one of those people who genuinely is excited to come to work, the show and be part of it and help and do whatever needs to be done to help promote it. Isaac Hayes. Again,
love that guy.
We don't always agree on things, mainly outside of wrestling, but he's a character, and he is just. Sometimes I'm like, you have too much personality to just keep it as a referee. You should be cutting promos, brother. But same thing with Odie Brown, referee extraordinaire. Zebra Talk. That's my boy, Odie. You've introduced me to so many people. You've introduced me to so many things in wrestling, and he's taught me a lot about how to navigate. And I think that's so invaluable. And, I'm not going in order. Paul McGee, Boy McGee, from Boise. Yeah, he's representing, he's, one of the part of the engine that makes Maverick go. And he's a great person. I only met his twins very briefly. I hope to spend more time with him now that COVID is starting to see a light at the end of the tunnel. Tanisha Singleton, who I now miss very much since she moved to Vegas. And she's very involved in the Black Girl, I believe it's called the Black Girls Hockey Club. She's just a great person and so smart and has such a presence. Really loved working with her before COVID, and I really want Maverick to come back just so I get a chance to work with her more. And then, of course, there's Karrion Kross. I can't believe you still answer a lot of my texts. I don't know why you do, but thank you. You might be the first action figure I buy since I was a kid. I think I have to. I think Paul might have to give me an action figure of his at some point. But it's amazing to see him, what he's doing. And he's such an incredible guy. Chris Bay, speaking of incredible people. This guy is somebody, you knew he was going to be a star. Like, I think Brian Farmer was the one who brought him in. I was just like, wow. This guy has got it all, and he put it together, and he has just gotten better. It's scary how much better he's gotten. With his promos are so good, and I just think that he's going to be, I think we talked about this. Like, he's in Impact, and I think Impact is a great place, but I think it has a built-in audience. It has a certain size audience, and I think whether they take it to the next level or he has to go elsewhere to go to the next level, I just can't wait for that to happen because he's going to be an incredible star. I really hope we don't lose him. I hope that we get to run a show before he gets signed elsewhere, and we have no chance of working with him. Calder McCall, Sean Black, Daniel Moon, Peyton, like all of them are just really great people to work with. And of course, there's Brandon Picara and Paul London. Like, I can't say enough about those guys. Like, Brandon is another older brother, not that much older sometimes, who has taught me so much and has made me believe in myself when I didn't always. He's the one who's like, you should be doing commentary. He's the one who said, when he was like, well, maybe we should switch you to play-by-play. I'm like, I've never. He's like, you'll do it. You're going to be great. And he's already made me believe that I am, I can keep getting better, and that, he really has believed in me and in my dreams when I didn't always. And I think that's the kind of friends you need. Paul London is somebody who, I hate to say this, but I still get a little starstruck with him, and it's really unhealthy because he doesn't see himself that way. And he is just an interesting person, a different person. I think when people think that wrestling is all a lot of these athletes have, he has so much else. Music, film. He knows so much about film that I envy his knowledge, and I envy his happiness and his approach to life. He's just such a great person, and somebody who I think doesn't get the credit he deserves for the positive influence he's had on the current product. I think there are certain things that he sees that he doesn't love. I think his moves made sense when he did them, and I think built to his big moves. And I don't think you always see that. So I think that is something that differentiates him from some of what we lament about the current product. But there's so many people in wrestling who I think look up to Paul London, especially people who are on TV now. Like Will Ospreay, talked about Paul London. I don't think Paul knows that. I don't think he knows how much of a treasure he is to somebody. I mean, it sounds like he's a national treasure for wrestling, and like just so interesting. And whether he's a tag team or singles, it doesn't matter. He is just such a brilliant guy, and I don't always understand him. I'll be honest. Sometimes I'm just like, wow, you are vibrating or operating at a higher level. I don't understand what's going on, but I'm interested to see where this goes. And I just love working with that guy, and I miss him. We're supposed to, hang out sometime in LA, but hopefully we can put that together. It's just, I really miss this. I miss doing this. I'm glad this podcast has given me the opportunity to rant for 2 sessions straight of over 2 hours. If you add them up, I'm so sorry to your audience. I'm so
No, I
if
love it.
you lose followers, we know why. There's a lot of people in wrestling who I feel like I just started to interact with, and I'm not talking about necessarily big time wrestlers. I'm talking about fans, and I'm talking about other people who run promotions. I miss you guys. I miss seeing those people whose names I didn't even know. Random person there, who I'm just like, it's just like a weird family event. It's a family gathering, Adam. It really is. It's a weird family.
Yes.
And it's definitely very varied, which is great. But I miss you all. And I hope Adam, you, and everybody else comes to Ant Up on June 12th so I can see your smiling faces. If you want to sit by the commentary and tell me what I'm doing wrong, I'd appreciate it. I think I'm in color commentary still that night. I don't know who I'm broadcasting with yet. I have not gotten that information. I'll put in a word for you if you want to do play-by-play.
Hey, I might be available.
Yeah, I mean, we would get so chatty. It'd be great. I think we'd have chemistry. I do think we'd have chemistry.
I was gonna say that. But I didn't want to assume.
Yes, I like it. But thank you so much for this opportunity, and thank you to everyone who's listened, who's asked questions. Charles, good luck. I really think you have an incredible story. Well, check out your documentary. If I can get more information, I'd love to promote it on social media. Except I don't really have a following, but I'm happy to do it. It just seems like you have an incredible story, and I want to hear more. And I look forward to that. And Adam, I look forward to talking to you more, whether on the air or off.
Yes, no, that's it. We're friends for life. I don't know what this weird thing is, but but no, you've been amazing, and you are amazing. You have been amazing, and just the stories and just the kinship, this brother sisterhood that we all had pre-COVID. It's like if we can get to some semblance of that. Obviously, it's going to take some time to get 100%, and that's not just LA, that's the rest of the world, the rest of the country, what have you. But let's just get back. And when we get back, let this whole time not be for naught, that we appreciate what we've all been through and we're there together.
And let's treat each other a little bit better. I mean, I can be the first one to admit I'm not always the nicest. I mean, I'm not even talking about any character. I just mean I think we need to give each other a break. And whether you're a promoter who has made mistakes or you're a fan who feels like you've been wronged, by anything, let's work on making wrestling better. There's the speaking out movement, which I think did a great job in rooting out a lot of the underlying issues, but I think it's just the tip of the iceberg, honestly. I think there's so much more that hasn't been said, both on that subject matter and others. And our mental health is important. We lose so many people, and I'm not saying that I'm a very peripheral member of this community, but it hurts. It hurts to see us lose so many people, and we need to do better. We need to be better to each other. So let's do that.
Yeah. So for those who want to be better,
do my best to be better.
Absolutely, and for those who want to be better with you and give you the good sir a follow on the media socials, where can they find you on social media?
Sorry, I have to look them up because I don't know all of them off the top of my head.
I actually know it.
Okay, go ahead.
A Glass Ceiling, literally Facebook, Twitter, as well as it is something different on Instagram.
Oh, it's on Instagram. It's EWJ55, which is a very funny story. But I will tell you this: the 55 is because of Oral Hershiser, my favorite athlete of all time. It was his jersey number. But yes, a glass ceiling, like a glass ceiling, is what I am on Twitter. I'm not so active on socials as I should be. I would like to be. Hopefully, when there are shows to promote, I'll be more active. Yeah. There is a really cool clip on my Instagram, I will say, of Keith Lee throwing JT Dunn through a ceiling in a three-way. It was JT Dunn versus Killer Cross at the time, not Karrion Kross, versus Keith Lee. Keith Lee is another person who I wish I could have worked with more. He is just a gentleman. That's all I can say. He's such a nice guy. Just soft-spoken, nice guy. But yes, so please throw us a follow, throw me a follow, if I can glom off of Adam here. But hopefully this won't be the last time we talk. Maybe
Yeah.
we'll do a Maverick Wrestling roundtable with myself and Brandon and as many people as we can get. Odie, Isaac, whoever wants to come.
We can get 10 motherfuckers up on this
Oh my
damn thing.
God.
So
Tanisha, if we can get Paul on it, we'll see if Paul would do it. But Tanisha, Isaac and Odie, like there's so many good people who would be, I'd love to have part of that. It'd also be like a reunion for us. So that'd be great.
yeah, no, 100%. 100%. I'll be glad to facilitate that because it's fun. That just sounds
Sounds
really
good to
fun.
me.
Hell
All
yes. And thank you guys for joining us here at According to Woods. And if you haven't already done so, go ahead and like, share, and subscribe to the According to Woods podcast on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitch. I mean, Aaron, you're subscribed to the podcast, aren't you?
Hell yeah.
Fuck yeah. So be like Aaron Glass and go ahead and subscribe to the podcast. But if you don't believe him, you don't believe me, and I don't know why you wouldn't, well, here's Pro Wrestler Zeta Zhang to convince you.
Hey, this is Zeta Zhang. Make sure you